Lyra's ship cut through the sky of the battered planet with silent precision. Below her, the remnants of human settlements lay scattered, smoking ruins marking the desperate struggle of a species she considered beneath her. She had conquered countless worlds, seen civilizations rise and crumble, yet humans fascinated her. They were fragile, reckless, and hopelessly predictable, or so she thought. The prisoner, Ethan, had been captured during a routine sweep through the rebel camps. His reputation had reached Lyra's ears long before she saw him. Humans whispered about him like he was some sort of savior, but in truth he was just a scientist, the kind who tinkered with machines and knowledge instead of weapons. And that, Lyra thought, made him powerless. She had faced warriors who wielded energy blades and armies that could level cities. A scientist would be nothing. Lyra stepped out of her ship into the interrogation hall, her boots echoing on the polished metal floor. Ethan sat in the center, his hands bound with energy cuffs that neutralized his ability to manipulate even the simplest tools. He looked up at her calmly, as if he expected her arrival. His expression was unremarkable, no fear, no malice, just the quiet intelligence of someone who measured every word and movement. "You are far from your people, human," Lyra said, her voice smooth but laced with authority. "Do you know why I brought you here?" Ethan tilted his head slightly. "To talk," he said simply. His tone was neutral, almost bored, but there was an undertone of something Lyra could not read, confidence. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Talk? You should be trembling. Your life is in my hands. Your species has little to bargain with." Ethan did not flinch. "Trembling doesn't solve problems," he replied. His words were calm, almost absurdly calm in the face of the threat before him. Lyra's patience thinned, though she forced herself to maintain composure. She motioned to the hovering drones around the room. "Perhaps you need a reminder of your position," she said. A pulse of energy ran through the cuffs, and Ethan flinched slightly. It was enough to cause him pain, but not enough to break him. He swallowed once, eyes meeting hers with a strange steadiness. "Pain is temporary," he said, "but understanding lasts longer." Lyra blinked. Understanding. This human spoke as if he were more than a mere captive. That was when she noticed the way he studied her, not with fear, but with curiosity. A tiny spark of intrigue flickered in her mind. Humans were unpredictable, but Ethan seemed aware, perhaps even clever. "You speak as if your species has power," Lyra said, circling him like a predator inspecting prey. "Yet I see only weakness. Your kind fights with crude weapons, defends with primitive strategies, and dies in numbers. Why should I believe you hold anything valuable?" Ethan's gaze never wavered. "Because power is not always in weapons or armies," he said. "Sometimes it's in knowledge, patience, and seeing what others cannot." Lyra paused, momentarily taken aback. He did not hesitate, did not stammer, did not beg. There was a calm that irritated her, as though he was mocking her without saying a word. She leaned closer, studying him. "You have knowledge," she said slowly. "What knowledge could a human possibly have that is worth my attention?" Ethan tilted his head, a faint smile forming. "Something you are not ready to see." That phrase made Lyra stop in her tracks. She had been through countless rebellions, interrogations, and battles. She knew fear, cunning, and desperation, and yet something about that statement made her uneasy. Humans were simple, they were reactive, not proactive. But Ethan's words suggested the opposite. He claimed he held a truth too heavy for her to bear. That audacity alone was remarkable. "You will speak," she said firmly. "Now." Ethan shook his head. "Not yet. I must first know why you want to know." Lyra frowned. This human was testing her patience. "I want to know because I hold your life in my hands," she said sharply. "Answer or die." Ethan exhaled slowly, his eyes scanning the room, the drones, and the empty halls beyond. "Then you must understand something first," he said. "Humans are not like you think. We survive, we adapt, we endure, and sometimes we rise in ways that even the most powerful beings cannot predict." Lyra's lips curled slightly, not in a smile, but in a mix of annoyance and curiosity. "You speak in riddles. I have conquered entire civilizations, human. Do not presume to lecture me." "I am not presuming," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "I am stating a fact." She narrowed her eyes. "Facts can be twisted, misinterpreted. Tell me one fact that proves your species is worth my attention." Ethan leaned back slightly, as if choosing his words carefully. "Your empire relies on predictability. You expect your enemies to act in ways you understand. Humans do not always follow patterns. We improvise. We endure. And in moments you least expect, we rise." Lyra's hand twitched toward the control panel. She could increase the pain. She could bend him. But there was a strange resistance in her mind, a curiosity she had not felt in decades. Could this human, so small and fragile, actually pose a challenge to her assumptions? "You are fortunate," she said slowly, "that I am intrigued. Most humans would be broken by now. Most humans would beg for mercy." Ethan's eyes met hers. "Mercy is not the same as surrender," he said, "and fear is not the same as weakness." Lyra stared at him for a long moment. His words echoed strangely in her mind. They were not just words. They were a reflection of a mindset she had underestimated, and for the first time, she felt a ripple of doubt. Perhaps humans were not the weak creatures she had assumed. "You speak boldly for someone who is helpless," she said. "Do you not fear death?" Ethan shrugged slightly. "Death is inevitable. But what we do before it is what matters. A species that fears everything dies quickly. A species that understands survives." Lyra stepped closer. The air between them was tense, charged with unspoken challenge. "You are clever," she said. "Perhaps too clever for your own good. But words alone cannot save you, human." "I do not rely on words alone," Ethan replied softly. "I rely on truth, and truths have a way of finding their place even where violence reigns." Lyra paused. For the first time, she wondered what truth this human held. She had faced generals, warlords, and scientists of countless worlds, and yet Ethan had a presence that made her hesitate. Perhaps it was his calm. Perhaps it was the spark of confidence in his eyes. Whatever it was enough to make her wary. "Perhaps you will tell me one day," she said finally, straightening her posture. "Perhaps not. For now, you will remain under my supervision. Any attempt to deceive me will be met with consequences." Ethan nodded. "I expected nothing less." Lyra signaled to the drones, and they adjusted their positions, ensuring that Ethan was contained. But as she turned to leave, a thought lingered in her mind, a thought she did not like to admit. This human was not ordinary. He held something beyond her understanding, something dangerous, and in that moment, a spark of fascination ignited in her. She had never been curious about a human before, but Ethan was different. She could feel it in the air, in the subtle tension that hummed between them. As the doors closed behind her, Ethan sat quietly, his mind racing. He had survived the first encounter, and he had planted a seed of doubt in the mind of an alien commander, one that could grow into something much larger if nurtured carefully. He knew that the truth he held was dangerous, not just for her but for the entire alien empire. And yet he also knew that humans were ready to rise, not through brute force, not through technology alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and an understanding of the universe that even the most advanced civilizations often overlooked. Outside, Lyra's ship continued to patrol the skies, a silent sentinel over a world that believed itself to be lost. But the quiet the calm, and the simple defiance of one human had already begun to change the course of events. And somewhere deep inside, Lyra realized that the game had changed. The human was not just a prisoner, he was a challenge, a puzzle she had never encountered before. Ethan, meanwhile, smiled faintly to himself. The first step had been taken. The truth he held, the truth that no one was ready for, was waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And when it did, the world would never look the same again. Ethan sat quietly in the small metallic chamber, the hum of energy fields filling the air. The walls glowed faintly with alien symbols that pulsed with a rhythm he did not understand. Despite the restraints, he did not feel fear. He had learned long ago that fear only clouded judgment, and judgment was what kept humans alive. Lyra entered without warning. Her boots clanged softly against the floor as she approached, her piercing eyes scanning him as if trying to see into his mind. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had conquered worlds, but there was a tension beneath the surface, a subtle hesitation she refused to acknowledge. "You continue to surprise me, human," she said. "Most would beg, plead, or break under pressure. You endure. Why?" Ethan tilted his head, regarding her calmly. "Endurance is not about resisting pain," he said. "It is about understanding it, learning from it, and using it to move forward." Lyra's brow furrowed. "Your species speaks in riddles," she said, her voice sharp. "Explain yourself." Ethan took a slow breath. "You expect humans to be predictable. You believe you can intimidate us with weapons, cages, or threats. But humans, we do not follow patterns you can foresee. We adapt. We survive. And sometimes we thrive when all logic says we should fail." Lyra paused, crossing her arms. "Survival is primitive. You misunderstand what I mean by power." "I do not misunderstand," Ethan replied. "I understand more than you think. Power is not only the ability to destroy, it is the ability to endure, to think, to make choices that change the course of events. Even a single human can shift the tide of a war if we act in ways others cannot predict." Lyra studied him closely. He spoke calmly, confidently, without arrogance. His words were simple, yet carried weight. She had heard such speeches before, from generals, from philosophers, even from scientists, but never with such conviction. There was something different about him, something dangerous. "You speak of human cunning as if it is a weapon," she said slowly. "Yet you are bound. You are helpless. How can you claim advantage over me?" Ethan's lips curved slightly. "Helplessness is only what others perceive. There is always a way forward, even in chains." Lyra felt a flicker of irritation. "Enough riddles," she snapped. "I demand answers. What is this? Advantage? Why should I even consider your words?" Ethan leaned back slightly, carefully choosing his words. "Because you have underestimated us. Your empire relies on predictability. You measure outcomes based on your assumptions. But humans, we do not always act according to assumptions. We improvise. We create solutions from nothing. We find strength where there is no strength. And when the moment comes, we strike in ways even the most powerful cannot foresee." Lyra's expression hardened. "Empty words. Show me proof, human, or your defiance will cost you dearly." Ethan's eyes flicked to the glowing restraints. He had learned that even under alien technology, the mind could remain free. He began a subtle mental exercise, visualizing possibilities, tracing patterns, imagining sequences the aliens would never consider. His hands could not move, but his mind was sharp, unbound, and alert. "Proof is not always immediate," he said. "Sometimes it is seen in patience, in observation, in knowing what others ignore. You may think humans are weak, but our strength is in our perception and our will." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "You speak as though you know me," she said, stepping closer. Do you? Ethan did not flinch. I know what you expect. I know how you measure power. I know what you fear and what you dismiss. You fear unpredictability, and humans are unpredictable. Lyra took a step back. His words, simple as they were, struck a nerve. She had never considered that a species she dismissed as fragile could truly defy expectation. Her empire had conquered countless civilizations, and none had made her pause in thought like this human. You are bold, she said, voice softer now, and foolish, perhaps both. But boldness alone does not save lives. Ethan smiled faintly. It is not boldness alone, it is understanding, timing, and choice. Humans can choose when to fight, when to endure, and when to act in ways others cannot predict. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She felt the weight of his words pressing against the assumptions she had built her career on. For decades, she had crushed resistance with force, measured success in control, and believed knowledge and cunning were tools easily countered with technology and discipline. And now, this human calmly claimed there were forces beyond her comprehension, forces she had dismissed as impossible. You speak dangerously, she said. Words alone will not save you from the consequences of defiance. Words are not all I have, Ethan replied. But they are the first step. You must understand what you underestimate before you can respond. Lyra's gaze lingered on him. There was a strange mixture of frustration and curiosity brewing inside her. No human had ever made her question her assumptions so openly. He was confined, yet she felt a tension emanating from him that suggested freedom of mind could outweigh the chains of the body. Suppose I indulge you, she said, her voice deliberate. Suppose I allow this perspective of yours. Tell me this. If humans are so capable, why have you not won your wars already? Why do you cling to the ashes of ruined settlements? Ethan's eyes were steady. Because humans fight differently. We do not seek to destroy indiscriminately. We endure. We adapt. We wait for the right moment to rise. And when we act with purpose. Lyra frowned. She could see the sense in his words, yet she could not allow herself to admit the possibility that he might be right. The Empire demanded results, control, and submission. Acknowledging that humans could rise beyond expectation was dangerous. You speak as if you are not afraid, she said sharply. Are humans not frightened in the face of certain death? Ethan shook his head. Fear is natural, but it is not weakness. It is a signal, a reminder, and humans do not allow fear to dictate our actions. We learn from it, we adapt, and we choose our path despite it. Lyra stepped back, pacing slightly. There was a tension in the room that had nothing to do with weapons or chains. This was a clash of perception, of understanding. She had always believed that power was measured in control, but Ethan's calm defiance suggested that there were forces beyond control that could shape outcomes just as effectively. You are unusual, she said finally. Most humans would break under scrutiny, under fear, under restraint. You do not. Why? Because breaking does not help, Ethan replied simply. Understanding helps. Observation helps. Patience helps. Humans endure not because we are stronger, but because we learn to see what others cannot. And that is the truth you are not ready for. Lyra froze at his words. Something about the way he said it, so calm, so certain, made her uneasy. She had faced countless adversaries who tried to unsettle her with threats, manipulation, and fear. None had the quiet confidence, the steady awareness, the calm logic that Ethan carried. You speak in riddles, she said finally, her voice betraying the faintest edge of doubt. And yet I sense there is danger in your words. You are not just a prisoner. You are a challenge. Ethan allowed a faint smile. Challenges are opportunities, he said, and humans have always taken opportunities when others dismiss them as weak. Lyra's lips pressed together. She had been taught to respect strength, to reward skill, to fear power. And yet here was a human, fragile in appearance, speaking truths that threatened to upend everything she believed about his species. "You speak boldly," she said, "perhaps foolishly, but you have planted a seed of doubt in my mind. That is dangerous, human, dangerous for both of us." "I expected nothing less," Ethan replied. "Doubt is the first step toward understanding, and understanding is the only way forward, for both sides." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Lyra's eyes studied him, searching for any sign of deception. There was none. Just calm, steady intelligence. Just the quiet confidence of someone who understood the rules of survival in ways she had not yet grasped. Finally, she nodded, though reluctantly. "Very well," she said. "You will remain under observation. Any attempt to deceive me will be met with consequences. But I will watch. I will see if your words hold weight." Ethan inclined his head slightly. "I expected no less." Lyra turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. "One day," she said almost to herself, "you will have to show me this truth you speak of, and I will be ready to judge it." Ethan's mind raced as she left. Each word, each observation, each subtle gesture was part of a larger pattern. Humans survived by seeing patterns that others missed, by finding solutions in chaos, by enduring when all seemed lost. And Ethan had already begun laying the foundation for the next step, a demonstration of what humans were truly capable of. Outside the chamber, the world continued its struggle. Fires burned in distant cities, alien patrols scoured the landscape, and humans fought for survival in every corner. Yet in the quiet, in the stillness of one small chamber, a shift had begun. A single human had planted doubt in the mind of a powerful alien commander, and doubt, Ethan knew, was the beginning of change. For the first time, Lyra felt something she had not experienced in decades: uncertainty. She had always believed in control, in predictability, in the absolute power of her empire. And yet now, she wondered if she had misjudged an entire species, and somewhere deep within, she feared the truth Ethan hinted at, a truth humans were not expected to hold. The game had changed, and neither of them could ignore it. Days passed, but the tension in the alien stronghold did not fade. Ethan remained in the containment chamber, his posture calm, his mind alert. Outside, the hum of the Empire's machines and patrols filled the air, a constant reminder of the power surrounding him. Yet he was undeterred. Humans survived by seeing what others ignored, by acting when least expected, and by turning weaknesses into strengths. And Ethan had been waiting for the right moment. Lyra entered the chamber once more, her eyes sharp, her presence commanding. She had spent hours reviewing reports, analyzing data, and observing Ethan's behavior. She had expected defiance, fear, or pleading. What she had not expected was calm, quiet confidence, intelligence that refused to bend. For the first time, she felt a ripple of uncertainty about her own understanding of humanity. "You continue to resist fear," she said, pacing before him. "You speak of human strength as though it is a certainty, yet your people are scattered, desperate, and small in number. How can you claim resilience?" Ethan's eyes followed her movement without alarm. "Strength is not always in numbers," he said softly. "Sometimes it is in understanding, strategy, and the ability to endure when others falter." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Do you truly believe you can convince me of this? One human against an empire, one human whose species has been reduced to ashes in countless battles?" "I do not seek to convince you," Ethan replied. "I seek only to show you the truth. You will understand it eventually, whether by choice or by circumstance. Lyra stopped in her tracks. His words carried a weight she could not dismiss. There was a strange confidence in him, a certainty that humans possessed something she had not yet seen. She had faced scientists and strategists before, but none had spoken with such calm assurance in the face of certain death. "You speak as though you know the future," she said, her tone skeptical. "Yet humans are not prophets. You cannot foresee what will happen." Ethan allowed a small smile. "No, we cannot see the future, but we can understand patterns, anticipate reactions, and act when the moment is right. And that is what makes humans dangerous, even to those who believe themselves invincible." Lyra's eyes flicked to the glowing restraints on his wrists. They held him physically, but she sensed that his mind was free. He had already demonstrated that intelligence and patience could be more powerful than any weapon. That realization made her uneasy. She had underestimated him, and underestimating humans had been her downfall in small skirmishes before. Could it happen again? "You speak in riddles and warnings," she said, taking a step closer. "Show me this truth you claim humans hold. Prove it." Ethan's gaze met hers steadily. Proof requires action, not words, and some truths must be seen to be believed. Lyra studied him, her curiosity mingled with frustration. She had authority over countless soldiers, fleets, and machines, yet here she was, confronted by a single human whose calm defiance unsettled her. For decades, she had been taught that humans were weak, fragile, and predictable, and yet in front of her, Ethan embodied something else, something beyond her understanding. "You speak of truths I am not ready for," she said finally. "Yet I am compelled to see them. Why?" "Because even those who wield power must understand the forces they face," Ethan said. "Ignoring the unexpected is what leads empires to crumble." Lyra paused, her mind racing. She had faced rebellion countless times, yet humans seemed always to find a way to endure. Every battle had taught her that strength alone did not guarantee victory. Intelligence, adaptability, and perseverance could shift outcomes in ways brute force could not. And this human before her embodied all three. "You suggest humans are more than they appear," she said slowly. "Yet how can a scattered, fragile species rise against an empire that controls entire worlds?" Ethan's eyes sparkled with quiet determination. "By seeing what others ignore, by acting when others hesitate, by turning the impossible into opportunity. Humans do not need to match strength with strength. We use strategy, courage, and ingenuity to survive and to rise." Lyra shook her head slightly, her frustration growing. He spoke with clarity, yet his words unsettled her. She had always valued control, predictability, and immediate results. And yet, here was a human who seemed to measure time, action, and consequence in ways she had never considered. "You speak boldly," she said, "perhaps too boldly. One human cannot change the course of events. You are alone." Ethan's lips curved faintly. "Alone in appearance, perhaps. But humans understand that unity, timing, and adaptation can turn weakness into strength. The smallest group at the right moment can shift outcomes far beyond what others expect." Lyra studied him for a long moment. There was a subtle challenge in his eyes, not defiance for its own sake, but confidence in a truth she could not yet grasp. She had faced countless challenges in her career, yet none had unsettled her like this human. He was not ordinary. He carried within him the essence of what humans could become when they refused to bend under pressure. "You are clever," she said, her voice softer now. "Perhaps too clever for your own good. But words alone are not enough to save you." "I understand," Ethan said. "Words alone are not enough. That is why the truth I hold is not in words, but in action." Humans demonstrate their strength when the moment comes, when others least expect it. Lyra's gaze lingered on him. She had seen confidence before, but this was different. This was quiet, steady, and unshakable. And it unnerved her. She had built her life on knowing who was strong, who was weak, and who could be controlled. Ethan challenged that understanding, not with weapons or violence, but with patience, observation, and intelligence. "You suggest that humans can survive and rise despite all odds," she said finally, "that your species can endure even when logic says you should fail." "Yes," Ethan replied simply. "Humans endure because we learn, adapt, and act with purpose. We survive not by brute force, but by understanding what others overlook, and when the moment is right, we rise." Lyra shook her head, conflicted. She had believed control and technology guaranteed victory. She had believed humans were fragile and predictable, and yet, in front of her, a single human defied every expectation. He was confined, yet unbroken. He was powerless, yet unafraid. And he spoke truths she was only beginning to understand. "You are unusual," she said. "Most humans would break under pressure." "You do not. Why?" "Because breaking is unnecessary," Ethan said. "Understanding is necessary. Observation is necessary. Patience is necessary. And humans endure because we see what others cannot, act when others hesitate, and turn obstacles into opportunity." Lyra's expression softened, though she did not show it openly. There was a strange respect forming, grudging but undeniable. She had faced countless species, and none had taught her this lesson. None had made her question everything she believed about power, strength, and resilience. "You speak as though you hold a truth I am not ready for," she said. "Perhaps I am not, yet I cannot ignore it. Your words have planted a seed of doubt, a dangerous seed, human." "And that seed," Ethan said quietly, "is the beginning of understanding. You cannot ignore the truth forever. Eventually, you will see it. And when you do, everything will change." Lyra stepped back, crossing her arms. There was a tension in the room that had nothing to do with weapons or chains. This was a confrontation of perception, of understanding, of intelligence. Ethan's calm defiance challenged her in ways she had never experienced. She had expected fear, rebellion, or cunning, but none of those applied here. What she faced was something subtler, deeper, and more unsettling. "You speak boldly," she said finally, "and yet I feel that you are right. Humans are not what I believed, but this understanding comes too late to matter. You are a prisoner. You are alone." "Alone in appearance," Ethan replied, "perhaps. But the truth is larger than appearances. Humans endure because we see what others cannot, because we act when others hesitate, and because we rise when no one expects it. And that is a truth you will not be ready for until it is too late." Lyra's eyes narrowed, her mind racing. She had faced countless adversaries, yet none had unsettled her like this human. He was confined, yet free in ways she could not control. He was weak, yet powerful in a way she could not measure, and he had planted a thought in her mind that refused to leave. Perhaps she had underestimated humanity entirely. Ethan watched her closely, aware of the shift. Doubt had taken root. Curiosity had begun to grow, and he knew that once the seed was planted, it could not be removed. Humans survived not by surrendering, not by pleading, not by relying solely on strength. They survived because they understood, adapted, and acted when the moment demanded it. Lyra stepped toward the door, her mind still grappling with the implications. "One day," she said quietly, almost to herself, "I will see the truth you speak of, and I will judge it." Ethan's lips curved faintly into a smile. "And when you do, the world will never be the same." Outside, The Empire continued its patrols. Fires burned in distant cities. Humans struggled, survived, and adapted. And within the quiet chamber, a single human had begun to change the course of perception, planting doubt in the mind of a powerful commander, setting the stage for a revelation that no one, not even Lyra, would be ready for. The game had shifted, and neither of them could ignore it. Ethan had spent days observing, listening, and waiting. He had planted doubt in Lyra's mind, slowly unraveling the assumptions that had guided her empire for decades. Now, the time had come. The moment had arrived when words alone would no longer suffice. Humans did not rely on threats or fear. They relied on action, patience, and understanding. Lyra entered the chamber, her expression taut with anticipation. Her mind was a battlefield of conflicting thoughts. For decades, she had believed in the absolute superiority of her empire, in control and predictability. Yet here she faced a human whose calm defiance had unsettled her, whose reasoning had pierced the armor of certainty she wore. "Today," she said, her voice low but commanding, "you will show me this truth you have spoken of." Ethan leaned slightly forward, unbound in mind even if his body remained restrained. "It cannot be fully shown," he said, "until you understand what humans are capable of. Together, with purpose and foresight." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Speak plainly, human. You test my patience." Ethan's gaze held steady. "Humans have survived worlds you thought were lost. We endure when others fail, adapt when others cannot, and rise when no one expects it. And we do this not with the strength of a single soldier, but with the intelligence, courage, and unity of our species. We learn from each challenge. We plan with care. And when we act decisively." Lyra hesitated. The words were simple, but their weight was immense. She had underestimated humans. She had assumed they were weak, primitive, predictable. And now she saw the truth. Humans were not just survivors. They were thinkers, adapters, strategists. In ways she had not accounted for, they could surpass her expectations. "You speak as if one human can change the course of events," she said slowly. "Yet your species is scattered, fragile, and hunted. How can this be?" "Not one human," Ethan said, "but all humans acting with understanding. Even a small group, guided by purpose and insight, can achieve what empires believe impossible. The strength of humanity lies not in weapons or technology alone, but in our capacity to understand, adapt, and overcome. That is the truth you are not ready for." Lyra's expression shifted subtly. She felt the first stirrings of fear. Not of Ethan. Not of a single human, but of the species itself. A species she had dismissed as insignificant now seemed capable of changing everything. She could see it in the patterns he described, in the logic of his words, in the confidence he radiated. "You speak dangerously," she said. "And yet I sense you are right." "Yes," Ethan replied calmly. "I am right. Humans endure because we do not accept limits imposed by others. We see opportunity in adversity. We act when others hesitate. We rise when we are expected to fall. And when we do, we cannot be stopped by assumptions or fear." Lyra stepped back, her mind racing. She had ruled by knowledge, technology, and force. And yet, she now faced a truth that threatened everything she believed. A single human had opened her eyes to the possibilities of an entire species she had dismissed. She realized that the human's greatest weapon was not technology or numbers. It was adaptability, intelligence, and moral courage. "You speak boldly," she said finally, her voice quiet. "And yet I cannot deny the logic of your words." "Logic alone is not enough," Ethan said. "Understanding is required, and that understanding comes from observation, patience, and experience. The moment will reveal what humans can achieve, and when it does, you will not be ready to oppose it." Lyra's eyes flicked toward the guards outside, toward the machines, toward the vast empire she commanded. All of it seemed fragile now, fragile against the subtle, enduring power of a species she had underestimated. The truth Ethan had spoken was simple, yet profound. Humans could rise beyond expectation, not by brute force, but by intelligence, perseverance, and unity. "You are remarkable," she said softly, almost to herself, "and dangerous. For even one human with foresight and courage can disrupt everything I know." Ethan allowed a small smile. "Imagine what an entire species can do when united by purpose and understanding." Lyra's mind struggled to process it. She had always seen humans as weak, disposable, predictable. And now, she saw a different reality. A reality in which humans were not just survivors, but architects of their own destiny, capable of reshaping the world and even challenging empires that believed themselves invincible. The moment hung in the air, tense and electric. Outside, the planet's fires still burned, the remnants of rebellion and resistance marking the struggle of humanity. Yet within the chamber, a quiet revelation had taken place. One human had shown another species, and a commander who had believed in absolute control, the power of human ingenuity, endurance, and courage. "You have opened my eyes, human," Lyra said finally. "And that is a dangerous gift. Perhaps it is too late for me to resist the implications of your truth." "Truth is never too late," Ethan replied. "It exists, whether acknowledged or ignored. And when it is acted upon, it changes everything." Lyra studied him for a long moment. There was no deception, no trickery, only a calm certainty that humans possessed something she had failed to recognize. Their resilience, their intelligence, and their moral courage were not weaknesses, but strengths, and these strengths, applied with unity and purpose, could challenge even the mightiest of empires. "You have shown me a glimpse," she said finally. "But action will reveal the full extent, and when that moment comes, I will see the truth of your words." Ethan inclined his head. "And when you do, perhaps you will understand that humans are not defined by appearances, weapons, or numbers. We are defined by our will, our ingenuity, and our ability to rise beyond expectation." Lyra turned to leave, but her mind lingered on the prisoner. The human who had challenged everything she believed. She had thought humans were weak, predictable, and expendable. And now she realized how dangerous her assumptions had been. One species, underestimated and misunderstood, could survive, endure, and rise against all odds. As she exited, Ethan's eyes remained fixed on the door. He knew that the first step had been taken. Doubt had been planted in Lyra's mind. Observation had begun. And soon action would demonstrate the full power of humanity. Outside, the planet's landscape stretched vast and broken, a testament to human struggle and resilience. Fires burned, winds carried the cries of those who survived, and humanity endured despite the weight of the empire pressing down upon them. And somewhere, in the midst of that endurance, plans were forming, strategies being honed, and the subtle but unstoppable rise of humanity was underway. Lyra walked through the corridors of her stronghold, her thoughts unsettled. The calm certainty of a single human had revealed a truth she could not ignore. She had underestimated the species, dismissed their potential, and ignored the possibilities of their intelligence and endurance. And now, she knew that underestimation could be fatal. Ethan remained in the chamber, quiet, observant, patient. He understood that victory would not come in a single moment, but through foresight, strategy, and timing. Humans had survived against impossible odds before, and they would survive again. The Empire's power could not match the subtle, enduring strength of a species that refused to yield, that adapted, and that acted when the moment demanded it. The stage was set. Lyra had seen the first signs. The truth of humanity's resilience and ingenuity was now undeniable. And when action finally met preparation, when strategy met opportunity, the Empire would witness the rise of a species it had long dismissed. Ethan leaned back, his mind already calculating the next steps. Humans survived because they understood, adapted, and endured. Humans thrived because they acted when others hesitated. And humans rose because they refused to accept limits imposed by others. Lyra, walking through the corridors, felt the weight of this realization pressing upon her. One human had revealed a truth that threatened everything she believed. One human had demonstrated the subtle but immense power of intelligence, endurance, and foresight. And now, the full measure of that truth was beginning to take shape. The Empire had assumed it held all the answers, all the control, all the power. But humans had shown that strength alone did not guarantee victory. Observation, understanding, patience, and action. These were forces the Empire had failed to account for. And the rise of humanity, once dismissed as impossible, had already begun.